I don't really think he knew what he was getting into, though. Because he
Hey, good morning, everybody. We are here with Estill Powell, a really good friend of mine. Met Estill with Toastmasters, and he is an announcer for VSU, Valdosta State University. Football, basketball, everything, right? Football, basketball, baseball, you name it, you do it. Is that right?
Yeah, I've done it before. I've done a lot of different events for sure.
So, Ty, how did you get into announcing? How did that come about?
Dumb luck, I think, is probably the best way to kind of describe getting into announcing. It's quite interesting. So I actually started over at Lowndes High School basketball about 5 years ago, and it was my neighbor was a teacher, and she forwarded me an email that they were looking for somebody, and she'd always said, "Hey, you've got a great voice. You should go and be an announcer or be on the radio." So I went and I talked to him, and what was interesting was I talked with Coach Holland and Coach Bell. And I remember distinctly Coach Bell asking me, she said, so what experience do you have being a PA announcer? And I was like, none. I told her, I was like, but I've been in Toastmasters for like 4 years, so I know how to kind of talk on the fly a little bit. And, it's something I'd like to really explore. And so they took a chance on me. And what happened was I got to go sit with Matt Malone over at BSU during one of his basketball games while I was learning. And then like 3 months later, I had a guy approach me and he was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing the Georgia Firebirds like arena football?" And I was like, "Well, if you own the team, sure, why not?" So I did that. I'd done some boxing events, and then Matt Malone reached out to me like about a year after that, and I filled in, started doing football, started doing baseball, and then the year after that, I basically did all the sporting events that I could possibly get in my hands. And I want to say it was like 120 something events that year. But now all I do really is just the football, and then I volunteer with Miracle League of Valdosta, basically helping those kids with autisms and disabilities and do that when the seasons are going there. And that's actually by far my favorite PA announcing gig that I've got.
See, that's fantastic. Now, what talk to me about the importance of your energy level, because if anybody ever heard you announce, you are the most engaging announcer that I've ever experienced. Just tell me about that. Tell me how you've been so successful at announcing and where you come up with that energy to just push it out there.
It's actually kind of easy, I think, when, I went to Lowndes, I went to VSU. And so like I already kind of like had that connection with those organizations on the athletic departments and stuff. So there was kind of like that love already there for the teams that I was announcing for. And really, I'll be honest with you, I've actually still got the very first video that I ever did, like when I was announcing. And I got to tell you, there was not a lot of energy that first time. So it really, what ended up happening is having to basically just kind of feel your way through it, because like nobody really tells you like, hey, here's what you've got to do. Here's how you've got to do it. And so what I've learned in about the last 5 years with PA announcing is you have to make whatever you're doing yours. So I had to do some transitioning here last year and give up some of my PA gigs. I've talked to a couple of people, and those folks stepping in, I just told them, I said, listen, you hear me PA announcing, whatever you do, don't do what I do. And the reason I say that is you're basically just part of that engagement, and you have to engage the fans how you are. You can't be something you're not. And so basically I just told them, I was like, you can take certain things, but at the end of the day, you've got to make it yours. And when you make it yours, that makes it like 10 times easier. And so how to really kind of like bring your own energy then, and you kind of had to find that flow. And for me, it's kind of funny. A lot of people, they hear me when I talk, they're like, you don't sound like that when you're on the microphone. And I was at the softball game like 2 years ago, and I was talking to the softball team, and they were like, you're the guy on the microphone, right? And I was like, yeah, I am. And they were like, you don't sound like that. I was like, well, I've got a magic mic. So how do you think Matt did it for so long? He sounds so good. And then of course I threw out my Blazers first down, and they were just like, oh my God. It was great.
That is awesome. So obviously it took some experience, and as you got more experience at doing the thing, you just are fantastic at it now.
That's what people say. I'll tell you, if anybody, when you do something, a lot of times, like for me, it's like I'm my own self-worst critic, right? So I already know, like, as I've gone through MPA now, it's like I'll find like, oh my goodness, I didn't say this right. I got this name wrong. And there's a lot of little blips there. And I'll tell somebody like, gosh, I can't believe I messed it up. They're like, what are you talking about? And it's just, I don't know. It's been interesting, and I've loved the favorite part though I've enjoyed the most is actually learning the very like unique names. So like for example, like on our football team, like 2 years ago, we had a guy from I think it was Nigeria, and his name was Isilawape Jegede. It took me 3 days to get his name down, and I'll never forget it.
It's funny in leadership, the same concept is learning everybody's name,
Hmm.
and sometimes that can be so difficult. But the constant repeating of it, you own it, and
Yeah.
you never forget these people, especially the ones with the interesting names. Because once you take the time to learn those, man, it's crazy.
It
So
really is for sure. And one thing I would add too, when we're talking about names, I think that's probably the most important word on anybody's entire life is their name. There's not any other word in the entire language or in the entire world that is more sincere or more sweet to hear than when somebody's calling your specific name. And myself, Estel is kind of a very unique name in itself. And so I'd kind of that's some of the things I've taken from when I was 14 years old, bagging groceries at the grocery store, trying to find out somebody's name and just repeating that because I only worked for tips. And I found out real quick what you've got to do so you can try to make money. And that goes into like today and just the professional side. And even personally, if I'm at the grocery store, I see somebody with a name tag, I call them out like, hey, thanks, Mr. Ernestine. Appreciate you taking care of me today. And that just makes them light up like, oh, you took the time to think about me and say my name.
right, no, that's fantastic. So talk to me about a little bit about your background and what you do currently.
My background, oh my goodness. I'm actually, so I've been doing, I did software development for about 18, almost 19 years. And so basically, I started off as like going to college for computer science. I, got a co-op into literally just down the street from where I live at. It used to be Gold Leaf Technologies here in Hayhira, Georgia. And basically, I was there for, gosh, I think like about 7 years. And I started off as just a co-op QA student, going all the way up to being promoted to a senior engineer, and then moved into being a professional services manager, where I was over a new department that we created from scratch, deploying our code, being on call 24/7, and then moved into a communications company and worked with some really cool projects with a company called Clientele until they sold off, and then more recently, I've actually transitioned in and actually took over a existing business in Hawaii called the Slice Pizzeria, and it's been around for, gosh, like 7 years, and we've had it for about 5 months, and things are starting to kind of move a little bit into a positive direction. And I tell you, you think it's going to be easy, but it isn't.
So as you've come into the Slice and you've taken over and you're now the leader of this pizzeria. Talk to me about some of the changes you made, and because some of the things that you've been telling me that you've been working with the kids and doing with them, how you're developing the leaders and just the responsibility that you're giving them. Tell me about that, because that's very intriguing for any of these emerging leaders that are going to watch this as we move forward or watching it now. You're doing some amazing things there that I think they could use some of those tips as they're bringing up their emerging leaders as well.
So for us, fortunately for me, so I've got a partner that works with me, Ashley Gilmer. She's been very instrumental in helping out. When we first took over back in October, I think the important thing for me is it took me a while to get to that point that I was like, okay, this looks like it's a great opportunity to jump into something, because you definitely don't want to jump into taking over a business unless you fully have vetted out like what the opportunity really truly looks like, because it does, when you own your own business, and you probably know from doing your public speaking and stuff and working with other leaders, man, when you own your own thing, it's not just a 9 to 5, it's a 24/7 thing that you're either constantly thinking about or something comes up. And I couldn't imagine possibly doing it completely on my own. So we've actually, the first thing we did was, once we finally took over, is our initial thing that we decided to do was split that major workload between us. My expertise is more operations, helping out with marketing, community outreach. And then she helps out mostly with the legalities of accounting, bookkeeping, taxes, making sure Uncle Sam's taken care of with all of those things.
Yeah.
We really came in probably right out of the gate and just try to get our hands around everything, just to make sure we understood what the actual business was. Because it's one thing to just kind of go in and take over an existing business, right? And it's maybe something that you've known how to do. Well, I've never owned a restaurant or a pizzeria before in my entire life. So I'm going from software development over to a pizzeria restaurant. I'm just like, oh, okay, this is interesting, making pizzas and then also taking on more responsibility with the business. So one of the biggest things that we have found is we can't do everything on our own. There's just not enough time today, and there's no way. So one of the things that we've actually started working on, if you are familiar with like the restaurant business, is you end up getting a lot of more younger folks that are working for you. And so for us, I think probably the thing that we did, we've got about 16 employees right now that work with us. And about a month ago, we started really talking about, okay, who can really help us out? Because, I like working, I like being involved, but at the same time, I also like to have time off to be with my family. How am I going to be able to enjoy life outside of just my business? And the only way that you can do that and survive that is either you have something that's just a one-man shop and you can do what you want when you want, or if you're doing something like this, you got to have a team of people that are absolutely helping you and supporting you. And so the first 3 to 4 months has really been building culture, building that thought process. But more recently is, okay, who can step in and help us out? So we've actually got 2 folks that are, we just basically, they're shift leaders is what we call them. They help us open, they help us close, they help make sure that, I'm not going to run out of ingredients. They're helping me make sure that operation is running as best as possible, while we're not there. So we've actually got those 2 people. One is actually a high school kid. He's 16 years old. And I know that's kind of like a daunting task when you're 16 and like, hey, guess what? We just gave you keys to the building. Come on in. But the thing that I like about him is he actually talks to me. He's in the FBLA. He's doing like public speaking. He's engaged. He's in college as a junior in high school. He's co-oping with Wiregrass. Nice. So already before putting that responsibility on him, we already kind of saw like that potential in him that, okay, this is somebody that really is responsible, somebody that can actually do those things. So it's, you're trying to develop people, but at the same time, when you're trying to get those key folks in, I think you've really got to make sure that you're getting the right people as well, that have that mentality that they are responsible. So with him, we talked to him about it and we basically said, hey, we're looking for somebody to help us open, help us close up, keep track of everything. And he was like, okay, yeah, sure. That sounds great. I don't really think he knew what he was getting into though, because he agreed. And I think we're on like week 3, almost 4 now. And so, but what's been interesting with him specifically is that, like I am taking more of like a step back. Like I'm not walking into the shop until a little bit later because I'm trying to let them have that opportunity to kind of learn on the job. And I don't know. I think mostly for a lot of people, you learn mostly when you're left alone to learn it, or if you can teach it. And so, but the good thing is I'm literally just a mile down the road. So if something comes up that's like, hey, Estel, I got this going on. Can you help me? 9 times out of 10, I could do it over the phone and he's good to go. And then I've also got another girl who's actually 22 who goes to VSU and she's a junior there. Now she's, a little bit more older. She actually is really great for this fit. When we talked to her, she's been with the company even before we took over with that. So she's jumped in and she's helped out, and she's really our primary person that helps us out at the shop with everything. And that's just, when it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we've got 10 plus people in our shop, we've got to direct what we've got to do. We got to make sure things are being done correctly as quickly as possible. We're in a service industry where we're delivering pizzas. And I don't know about you, but a lot of people don't order food until they're already hungry. So by the time that their food's ready, they're already hangry quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but anyways.
So you said something that piqued my interest there, which was you spent the first 3 months building your culture.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the kind of culture you wanted to create and how you went about creating that culture.
So I think the number one thing is this. The number one thing I've told every single employee that's in my shop that you've got one of two reasons to be there. As like the one reason is you're in school, and so this is a job to help you get through with, you know, paying your education, helping you out there. Or number two, maybe this is a second job because, as Dave Ramsey has said, you know, one of the easiest ways to make extra money is to be a pizza delivery person. And if that's the case, that's cool. So those are the only two reasons, primary reasons that anybody is usually working with us. The only very, very outlying third reason is if they want to own their own restaurant or own their own pizzeria. So all of my employees, unless they fall into it's extra money, so if they're just students, I've already told them that once they graduate high school, once they graduate college, you've got 6 months to get out of my shop. I don't want you there. And
Right.
it's not that I don't want you there. It's that I want you to move on with life. This is not a job that you're going to make a career with unless you really, truly want to open up your own restaurant.
Mhm.
So my goal is that I want you guys to get your education. How can we help you? And then let's get you moving forward with your career path. This is just that stepping stone to where you're going to go in life. And so I think that's been the number one rule for me is like, I don't want anybody here unless they absolutely have to be here, or if this is just educational stepping stone. So I think that helped out quite a bit for them to know that we want to support our employees with what they're doing in life at this time.
Mhm.
And life is ever changing. And then the second part I would say is I really, we have our music playing. I mean, literally when there's business, when we got to go get things done, I'm walking through and I'm like, hey, have we done this? Are we doing that? Have we dispatched this delivery? Like, I'm in there and I'm communicating as much as I can all across the board. But at the same time, though, you know, you have those times where it's like, you know, there's a 15-minute lull, and it's not like, oh, we have to always be doing something, but we can dance, we can cut up. I mean, half my employees are singing while they're working. And, you know, and it's funny. It's just, to me, what we're trying to do is we understand that most of our employees are going to be younger adults, basically.
Right.
And so you can still enjoy coming to work, even though it's a job to get you where you're going in life. And so we're really just trying to build that emphasis that we want to help them get through what they're trying to do and that they can enjoy what they're doing. We've actually set up scholarships with Valdosta State University. So our employees can actually take advantage of that. So not only are we, you know, having you guys come in and work and we're paying you, but we're also going to be vested in your future as long as you're working with us. And to me, there's not really anything we get in return from that financially. It's an opportunity for us to give some more advantages to our people, and just build relationships and hopefully just get them on that path of where they're going to go in life. And eventually, at some point, we all got to be leaders to some degree, regardless if it's just that one project, that one client. And so how do we help build that for our employees? Because you know, when you work with somebody, you're really with them more than you are with your own family a lot of times. And so, you know, we actually love our employees, and we think we've got like a really great crew, you know. So we've built, I think, trust. We've built the fact that we allow them to make those decisions. I mean, and I've told them before, I've told my employees constantly, I'm like, listen, if you have any questions, just do what you feel is right. I'm not going to get mad at doing what you feel is right. We can train and we can fix it if it wasn't the right answer, but I can't fix an upset customer.
Right.
So let's do what we can to appease them, unless, you know, there's a different mandate and it's somebody that's abusing that system or things like that.
Right. We're coming up on the end of our hour, Estel. If you what anything that I didn't ask, or just any last second advice that you can give to emerging leaders that would set them up for success in their careers?
I think the number one thing for anybody is continuing to learn. You know, you've got to have that drive. You've got to have that passion to want to do that. Just one quick thing. I remember when, you know, my previous company had sold, you know, clientele, all the upper leadership was gone, and I was in charge of this huge account. I had never, ever, ever in my entire life ever negotiated contracts. I had never done any of this stuff before in my life. And it was like daunting. I was like, wow. And nobody could really help me because I was the only person that had the knowledge. And so I had to literally, I spent so much like of my time listening to Audible books on communications, on negotiating, on selling. It took me 9 months to finally get my first like negotiations thing done. And when I was done, I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then all of a sudden what happened was I just started like, I was like, wow, that was really pretty cool. That was fun. And so then I started listening to more. And then I was like, okay, how can I use this for other things? That's when I bought my bed. You know, like that's the number one thing, if I could tell anybody, is you've got to find out what's your niche and how do you learn. Is it, you know, the like hive mind? Is it books? Is it audibles? Is it YouTube? Is it a combination? Is it doing? So figure out what that specific niche is for you, and just go for it and do it. And it's not always going to be successful. Be prepared for failure, but eventually the more you learn, the more you're going to be able to do going forward.
And absolutely, that is fantastic advice. Ethel, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And
My pleasure.
say goodbye to the audience. We'll talk to you again soon.